Imagine walking into a room, and before you even say a word, people sense your presence. They listen, not because you demand it, but because you own it. No aggression, no arrogance, just pure, unshakable confidence. Now, confidence is often misunderstood. Some believe it's about being the loudest voice in the room, the toughest fighter in the battle, but true confidence? It's the ability to win without ever needing to fight. It's the power to stand firm even when everything around you shakes. Today we're going to explore winning without fighting, the psychology of unshakable confidence, the mindset that allows the greatest leaders, negotiators, and visionaries to win before the battle even begins. Have you ever noticed that the people who talk the most about their achievements, their status, or their strength are often the ones who feel the least secure? It's as if they're trying to convince themselves just as much as they're trying to convince others. True confidence doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't walk into a room and declare its presence. It simply exists. And because of that, it commands attention effortlessly. Think of a deeply rooted tree. It doesn't sway wildly with every gust of wind, nor does it try to prove its strength by shouting about how deep its roots go. It just stands firm. It withstands storms without panic. That's real confidence. It's quiet, steady, and unwavering. On the other hand, insecurity is loud. It craves acknowledgement. It seeks constant reassurance because it's built on shaky ground. The insecure person needs to be heard, needs to be seen, needs to be validated. And in doing so, they often push people away. Picture two individuals in a room. One is speaking loudly, boasting about their accomplishments, interrupting conversations to insert their own stories. The other sits calmly, listening intently, responding only when necessary. Who do you think holds the real power? Confidence doesn't compete. It doesn't need to be the loudest voice or the center of attention. It allows others to speak, to shine, to take space, because it knows its own worth. Insecurity, on the other hand, always seeks the spotlight. It thrives on being noticed, even if it means dominating the conversation or exaggerating its own importance. Silence can be more powerful than words. A confident person doesn't feel the need to fill every moment with speech. They're comfortable with pauses, with stillness, with simply being. They know that their presence is enough and that people will naturally be drawn to them, not because they demanded attention, but because they earned it through quiet self-assurance. We see this dynamic play out in leadership, relationships, and even in moments of conflict. The most respected leaders are rarely the ones who bark orders or boast about their power. They are the ones who listen, who observe, who choose their words carefully. They do not react emotionally, nor do they feel the need to prove themselves. Their authority is not in how loudly they speak, but in how confidently they carry themselves. Insecurity, however, reacts. It over-explains. It rushes to justify itself, fearing that if it doesn't, it will lose credibility. It is easily threatened and quick to defend because it is built on a fragile foundation. It struggles to sit in silence because silence feels like a void that must be filled. Look at history, at the greatest leaders, thinkers, and visionaries. The ones who truly changed the world were not the ones who constantly sought to prove their worth. They were the ones who knew their worth. They let their actions speak louder than their words. They carried themselves with quiet conviction. And because of that, people listened, people followed, people trusted. Real confidence is unshaken by criticism. It does not crumble under doubt. It does not need applause to feel valuable. It simply is. Power is often misunderstood. Many believe it's about dominance, control, or the ability to force others into submission. They associate power with aggression, the ability to overpower, outmaneuver, or outshout the competition. But real power doesn't work that way. The most powerful individuals in history didn't always win by force. They won by shaping perception. Perception is everything. It determines how people see you, how they respond to you, and ultimately how much influence you have over them. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you react in moments of tension, all of it creates an unspoken narrative about who you are and what you stand for. And that narrative, whether intentional or not, defines the power you hold Think about the leaders we admire, the ones who command respect without ever raising their voice. They don't need to impose their will through intimidation. Their presence alone shifts the energy in a room. People pause before speaking. They listen more carefully. They take them seriously, not because they were forced to, but because they believe in the authority this person naturally exudes. Now contrast that with someone who demands power, who insists on their authority through force. They shout to be heard. They make threats to assert control. They believe that the only way to win is to dominate. But the harder they try to force their power onto others, the weaker they actually appear. Why? Because desperation for control reveals a lack of it. The most powerful people in any room aren't the ones trying the hardest. They are the ones who understand that power is not taken, it's given. It's given by the people who choose to respect, to follow, to believe. And people don't give power to those who force it upon them. They give it to those who make them feel something: safety, trust, certainty. Perception is built in the smallest moments. The way you handle pressure, the way you hold yourself in uncertainty, the way you respond to conflict. These things shape how others see you. If you react with panic, the world assumes you are not in control. If you lash out in anger, you reveal insecurity. But if you remain calm, if you hold your ground without aggression, if you respond instead of react, people perceive you as powerful, whether you say a word or not. There's a reason why some people can walk into a room and instantly attract attention, while others struggle to be noticed no matter how hard they try. It's not always about appearance, status, or title. It's about the energy they bring. It's about how they make others feel in their presence. Confidence, certainty, and composure signal strength. They tell the world, I don't need to prove anything, I already know my worth. That kind of energy is magnetic. It draws people in. It makes them want to listen, to follow, to believe. On the other hand, when someone overcompensates, when they speak too loudly, interrupt too often, or dominate conversations just to assert their presence, it has the opposite effect. People may comply in the moment, but they do not respect. They may listen, but they do not trust. Because forced power is fragile. It needs constant reinforcement. It is always on the edge of collapse. Look at the most influential figures throughout history, the ones who led revolutions, who shifted cultures, who built empires, not through brute force, but through vision, through belief, through the ability to inspire. Their power didn't come from making others fear them. It came from making others believe in them. Perception shapes reality. The way you present yourself determines how the world treats you. If you act small, the world will see you as small. If you carry yourself with quiet strength, with a kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but naturally receives it, people will treat you as powerful because they believe you are. The moment you stop chasing power, stop forcing it, stop trying to control others, and instead focus on how you carry yourself, how you present yourself, how you make people feel in your presence, that is the moment power starts to shift in your favor. Because power isn't about force, it's about perception. And perception, once mastered, can shape the world around you. In any competition, negotiation, or conflict, the instinctive response for many is aggression, to push harder, to be louder, to dominate through force. It's a primal reaction deeply embedded in human nature. The belief that the one who asserts themselves the most will ultimately come out on top. But history, psychology, and real-world experience tell a different story. Aggression may create an illusion of power, but it is not sustainable. It burns fast and bright, but it lacks endurance. It forces compliance in the short term, but it does not build lasting influence. Aggression creates resistance. It triggers defensiveness in others. It escalates situations that could have been diffused. It leads to unnecessary battles that drain energy and resources. On the other hand, certainty is a force that requires no aggression. It is steady, unwavering, and quietly powerful. When someone exudes certainty, they do not need to prove themselves. They do not need to fight for control because their very presence establishes it. Certainty is what makes people lean in when you speak. It is what makes others hesitate before challenging you. It is what separates those who command true respect from those who merely demand obedience. Think of a seasoned negotiator sitting across from an opponent who is pounding the table, raising their voice, making threats. The aggressive negotiator believes that by intimidating, by forcing the other party into submission, they will win. But the experienced negotiator remains calm. They do not match aggression with aggression. They do not get flustered or defensive. Instead, they hold their ground unshaken. They speak slowly, deliberately. They do not react emotionally because they are certain. They know their value. They know their position. And because of that certainty, they do not need to prove anything. Aggression is a reaction. Certainty is a choice. Aggression is driven by emotion, by fear, insecurity, or the need to dominate. Certainty, on the other hand, is rooted in clarity. It comes from understanding exactly who you are, what you stand for, and what you are willing to tolerate. It is the quiet, immovable force that makes people take notice. Look at the greatest leaders, the most influential figures in history. Were they the ones who ruled by fear, who relied on force alone to maintain their power? Some did, but their legacies were often built on unstable ground, collapsing the moment their aggression could no longer be sustained. But the ones who led through certainty, through conviction, through an unshakable belief in their mission, those are the leaders who stood the test of time. Certainty is not arrogance. It is not about being inflexible or refusing to listen. It is about knowing deep within that you do not need to fight every battle to win the war. It is about understanding that people are drawn to those who exude confidence, not to those who impose control. When a leader, a speaker, or a negotiator walks into a room with quiet certainty, they do not have to demand attention. The room adjusts to them. The energy shifts. People instinctively respect them, not because they fear them, but because they recognize something deeper, something solid, something real. Aggression often comes from a place of insecurity. It is a defense mechanism, a way of masking uncertainty by overpowering others. It is the person in an argument who interrupts constantly, who speaks over others, who refuses to listen, because deep down they are afraid that if they pause, if they allow space for doubt, they will lose control. But the truly confident person, the one who is certain in their stance, has no such fear. They can afford to listen, they can afford to pause, they do not need to rush to fill the silence, because they are comfortable in it. In moments of confrontation, it is not the loudest voice that wins, it is the most certain. The person who remains calm, who does not waver under pressure, who does not allow themselves to be provoked, ultimately holds the real power. Their composure unnerves the aggressive opponent. Their refusal to engage in unnecessary conflict frustrates those who rely on intimidation, and in the end, it is certainty that prevails, not force. Aggression burns bridges. Certainty builds them. Aggression creates enemies. Certainty earns allies. Aggression seeks to dominate. Certainty seeks to lead. When faced with opposition, the aggressive person fights to overpower. The certain person simply stands firm, knowing that true strength is not about pushing the hardest, but about never needing to push at all. In a world where people rush to speak to prove to respond, there is power in the pause. Pausing is not just silence, it is control. It is the deliberate choice to hold space instead of rushing to fill it. It is the ability to create anticipation, to draw others in, to command attention without demanding it. Most people fear silence. In conversations, in negotiations, in debates, they rush to respond, to fill every gap with words as if silence is a sign of weakness. They feel the need to explain, to justify, to prove their point before anyone has even questioned them. But the ones who truly understand influence know that silence is not an absence of power, it is the presence of it. Consider the most captivating speakers. They don't just talk, they pause. They allow their words to settle, to resonate. They create moments where the audience leans in, waiting for what comes next. It's not about the words they say, it's about the space between them. The space where meaning is absorbed, where anticipation is built, where true impact happens. Pausing is not hesitation, it is not uncertainty, it is not weakness, it is intentional, it is calculated, it is a signal of confidence, a demonstration of control. Those who master the pause never appear rushed, never seem flustered. They dictate the rhythm of the conversation, setting the pace on their terms. In high-stakes negotiations, the best negotiators don't just listen, they pause. When an offer is made, they don't immediately react. They let silence fill the space, creating discomfort for the other party. And in that discomfort, the other person often speaks first, revealing more than they intended, making concessions they didn't need to make. The pause is a tool, a strategy, a psychological advantage. In leadership, the most respected figures do not speak over others. They do not rush to fill every moment with sound. They listen. They take a beat before responding. They make their words count. And because of that, when they do speak, people listen, not because they demanded attention, but because they earned it. In moments of tension, the instinctive reaction is often to fill the space with noise, to defend, to argue, to fight back. But the one who pauses holds the real power. The pause forces others to confront their own words, their own emotions. It disarms aggression. It makes the other person wonder what you are thinking, what you will say next. And in that moment of wondering, they become unsettled, unbalanced. The pause shifts the power dynamic without a single word being spoken. In relationships, whether personal or professional, the ability to pause before reacting changes everything. The difference between reacting and responding is often just a few seconds of silence. A pause before speaking can prevent an argument from escalating, can turn conflict into understanding, can transform miscommunication into clarity. It creates space for thought, for emotional regulation, for wisdom to emerge before words are spoken. Even in storytelling, the most gripping moments are not always the words themselves, but the silence between them. The pause before the big reveal, the space that allows suspense to build, emotions to deepen. Great actors, great writers, great performers, they all understand this. They know that silence, when used with intention, can say more than words ever could. In public speaking, inexperienced speakers fear silence. They fill every moment with words, with ums and uhs and unnecessary explanations. They feel the need to rush, to keep talking, afraid that if they stop for even a second, they will lose the audience's attention. But the best speakers, the ones who truly captivate, embrace the pause. They allow silence to settle. They let the weight of their words land before moving on. And the audience, instead of losing attention, becomes even more engaged. Pausing is about control. It is about knowing that you do not need to prove yourself with an overflow of words. It is about understanding that silence can be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than speech. It is about confidence in your own presence, in your own ability to hold space without rushing to fill it. When someone speaks without pausing, their words blur together, their impact is diluted. But when someone pauses, they create emphasis, they create rhythm. They make people hang on to every word, not just hearing them, but truly listening. Pausing allows space for thought, for reflection, for clarity. It prevents impulsive responses, emotional reactions, unnecessary words. It gives you time to choose your words carefully, to ensure that when you do speak, you say exactly what you mean. In a world that moves fast, where conversations are rushed, where people interrupt and talk over each other, the one who pauses stands apart. They exude calm. They project certainty. They make others wait, wonder, lean in. They create a presence that is felt long before they say a word. Most people believe strength comes from control. Control over situations, control over outcomes, control over people. They believe that the tighter they hold on, the stronger they are. But true strength doesn't come from attachment. It comes from the ability to let go. Detachment is not indifference. It is not apathy. It is not a lack of care. Detachment is clarity. It is the ability to separate yourself from the chaos of emotions, from the weight of expectations, from the need to control what cannot be controlled. It is the power to remain centered when the world around you is spinning. People who are attached to everything, their opinions, their emotions, their need to be right, are easily shaken. They take everything personally. Every disagreement feels like an attack. Every failure feels like a defining moment. Every loss feels unbearable. They are trapped, bound by their own need for control, unable to move freely, unable to see beyond their own immediate reactions. But those who practice detachment move differently. They are not easily provoked because they do not attach their worth to the opinions of others. They are not easily shaken because they do not cling to temporary circumstances. They understand that emotions are fleeting, that situations change, that control is often an illusion, and because of that, they remain steady where others crumble. In conflict, the attached person fights to win. They argue to be right. They react emotionally, taking every word as a personal attack. Their ego is in control, dictating their actions, clouding their judgment. They do not listen. They only wait for their turn to speak, to defend, to prove. And because of that, they often escalate situations that could have been diffused. The detached person, however, does not react. They respond. They listen without the need to defend. They understand that not every disagreement is a battle. Not every criticism is a threat. Not every challenge needs to be met with resistance. Their strength lies in their ability to observe without being consumed, to engage without being entangled. Detachment gives perspective. It allows a person to step back and see things as they truly are, not as their emotions interpret them to be. It creates space between action and reaction, between stimulus and response. And in that space, there is power. The power to choose, to think, to remain in control of oneself even when everything else is out of control. In relationships, attachment often masquerades as love. But love and attachment are not the same. Love is free, expansive, generous. Attachment is possessive, restrictive, fearful. The attached person clings, demands, controls, mistaking their need for security as love. They fear loss so deeply that they try to prevent it by holding tighter, by dictating, by needing constant reassurance. And in doing so, they push away the very thing they wish to keep. The detached person loves differently. They do not love with the fear of losing, but with the freedom of knowing that love is a choice, not a possession. They do not cling because they understand that true connection cannot be forced. They allow others to be who they are without trying to mold them into something that fits their own expectations. And because of that, their love is stronger, not out of dependency, but out of mutual respect and understanding. In ambition, attachment can be dangerous. The person who is attached to a specific outcome, a specific path, a specific version of success, often suffers when things don't go as planned. They tie their self-worth to achievements, to validation, to external markers of progress, and when things don't unfold the way they expected, they spiral. They feel lost, defeated, directionless, because their identity was built on something they could not control. The detached person moves differently. They have goals, they have ambitions, but they do not define themselves by them. They understand that paths change, that failure is not final, that adaptability is more valuable than rigid persistence. They pursue success, but they are not owned by it. They are willing to walk away from opportunities that do not serve them. They are willing to change course when necessary. They do not need things to go a certain way in order to remain steady, because their strength comes from within, not from external validation. In moments of uncertainty, the attached person panics. They cling to what is familiar, even if it is no longer serving them. They resist change because change feels like loss. They would rather hold on to a sinking ship than risk the unknown. And in doing so, they suffer more than necessary, prolonging their own pain. The detached person trusts the flow of life. They understand that not everything needs to be forced, that not every battle needs to be fought, that not every door that closes is a loss. They do not resist change. They adapt to it. They let go when something is no longer right for them without fear, without resentment. And because of that, they move through life with a sense of peace that others struggle to find. Detachment is not cold, it is not distant, it is not emotionless. It is the ability to feel without being controlled by feeling, to care without being consumed, to engage without being enslaved. It is freedom, it is clarity, it is strength. Detachment is not about avoiding life. It's about engaging with it fully without being controlled by it. It is the ability to move with strength, to respond with clarity, and to let go with confidence. When we detach, we don't lose, we gain the freedom to see things as they are, to act with wisdom, and to stand unshaken in a world that is constantly changing.